Section 1.3.3. The great and terrible day of the Lord is a welcome, joyful event for some, and a terrifying event for those in judgment. A reading from the book of Psalms, number 24. The earth and everything in it, the world and all its inhabitants, belong to the Lord. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good rotation of the earth. May the peace of the Holy Spirit be with you. Welcome to the World Crown section 1.3.3, titled, What is the Judgment of God? Religious people, in tune with the World Crown, especially Catholics and Muslims, who have services 7 days a week and several times a day in their busiest sectors, will have their eyes opened. Some people think a religious service once a week is sufficient, and maybe a Bible study during the week. Even to accomplish that in one's life is admirable. The point is that without wanting, we see the importance of daily services, especially when a judgment of God has been made public. The daily religious service is a reminder that our Holy Spirit does not rest, not even on the Sabbath, especially when its children live in a world made less than perfect by their own hands and their own decisions. Welcome to section 1.3.3. What is the judgment of God? The judgment of God in its public presentation is a tradition, and honoring it is a tradition. Blessed is our Holy Spirit, who is true to its promises, even if those promises are not taught to us. Even if we never read holy books, we will benefit from the reason and the justice of our Holy Spirit. Divine justice is the primary reason that a government of God exists on earth. A free world must be perfect in its behavior and laws in order for God's justice not to descend down upon the earth. Since our free world is not perfect in its behavior and laws, God's judgment is always upon us. Making sure the law is moral and decent is another reason that the government of God exists. Even if the law is perfect, people still break the law. Such are the perils of living in freedom. Such is the necessity for the judgment of God. The judgment of God is extraordinary justice in ordinary time. The judgment of God is non-sensational daily justice, which if we are not told about it, we will not know of it. Many people throughout history have lived good long lives and died without knowing that God was judging the world their entire lifetime. The judgment of God is the steady, daily, limited protection of our Holy Spirit. Our protection is limited because we need to learn how to live, so we don't need protection. And so aging and natural death are our greatest concerns. The judgment of God is the steady, reliable intervention of our Holy Spirit so we can continue to progress. Interventions of God are stable, reliable, and reoccurring events. We have them all the time. They can be found in our history books. Every positive new beginning in our world, since organized government began on earth, is the result of a judgment of God. Throughout our history, leadership has collapsed and reset in towns, settlements, villages, states, provinces, republics, kingdoms, monarchies, empires, and now dictatorships and democracies. Until we learn how to behave and to better govern ourselves, we will continue suffering. Right governance and right behavior is the purpose of our existence, living between heaven and earth. And the judgment of God reminds us of that. The judgment of God is a teacher that teaches us how to become more like our Holy Spirit, like it was intended. Our souls must suffer their own mistakes. Humans cause the majority of their own suffering. The goal is to stop conspiring against yourselves and against each other. The judgment of God is the promise of the Holy Spirit given to all of us in heaven, and we agree to it that when our existence on earth is placed in danger by the corruption that can happen in the human condition, the Holy Spirit will give us perfect justice in the event we beat ourselves with our own human conspiracies. Continuing on, section 1.3.3, letter B. What is the judgment of God? The judgment of God is a safe, steady, reliable, dependable, scientifically proven, and measurable event. It protects more than it permits, so humans can stuff their faces with popcorn and rice while watching sports. But if the judgment of God is covered up, people will not learn of it. When ongoing conspiracies like socialism, communism, or Freemasonry, or any equivalent exists, you can be assured God's judgment is in effect. The judgment of God is a situation. It can be the judgment of many conspiracies simultaneously, all at the same time, or the judgment of just one or a few, depending on what is needed. In the judgment of God, life around the world is ordinary and peaceful. But the fool's feast and the world's most dangerous people are always being judged by God. God judges the world while women marry and are given in marriage. You can get a degree while God judges the world. You can even raise a family. You can start a business in the judgment of God, or even change careers. Section 1.3.3, letter C. The judgment of God is a cycle. When any segment of the human condition has, because of corruption, become a danger to their citizens and what is in place to bring them justice fails to do so, that corrupt segment of society will be judged by the Holy Spirit. If after any corrupt segment of society is judged and a new conspiracy forms to take their places, the cycle of judgment continues until all political conspiracies are exhausted and can no longer continue. Section 1.3.3, letter D. What is the judgment of God? The judgment of God is the reoccurring justice of heaven. The human condition is such that it needs support always, in all areas of life. Section 1.3.3, letter E. What is the judgment of God? The judgment of God is a repeating historical event and cycle in each nation. The judgment of God is about taking political, governmental, financial power and authority away from the corrupt and placing it into the hands of good people and good government. Otherwise, it would serve no purpose. The judgment of God is a slow but effective process. In the judgment of God, all political, medical, organizational, governmental, scientific, education, and religious conspiracies are daily, patiently, and methodically judged by God. One point three point three, letter F. What is the judgment of God? The judgment of God is like a children's game called musical chairs. In this game, if there are 9 children, 8 chairs are initially set up. When the music starts, children run and walk around the chairs while the music is playing. While the music is playing, the teacher removes 1 chair. As the kids walk around the chairs, the teacher stops the music and the kids scramble to find their seat. In musical chairs, when the music stops, 1 child is left standing and he or she is out of the game. The game continues until only 1 chair is left. The judgment of God is very similar. In the judgment of God, when the music stops, someone is judged. Their chair of power has been taken away. The judgment of God is about power and making sure power is in the right hands in every nation without disrupting our lives too much. 1.3.3, letter G. What is the judgment of God? The judgment of God is always in progress. Before the judgment of God was made public by myself, the judgment of God was in progress. It does not stop. It is not hard to feel the presence of the Holy Spirit in our world. The presence of the Holy Spirit is like a radio station that you carefully and prayerfully have to tune into. The judgment of God is a way of measuring ourselves and our ability or inability to match the vision that the Holy Spirit has for our collective futures. One 1.3.3, letter H. The judgment of God, 1919 to the present. We are in the escalation of 2011 and 2012 to the present, titled MMXII, Orbis, Terrarum, Judicivm. This is a global escalation and the last phase of a greater judgment of God, MMXIV, Mundis Judici Spiritus Sanctus Dei. The judgment of God, 1945 to the present, is called the Great Deception, because we were made to think in 1945 to be finally rid of the practices of German white supremacy, which were continued by democracy through the Freemasons and the Communists. 1945 was but a pause in a judgment of God which started after the end of World War I in 1919. The Judgment of God, 1919, is titled The Great Falling, when two glorious Christian nations abandoned their status and became heretic, atheist governments. And so, the Great Deception, Judgment of God, 1945 to the present, is a continuation of the Great Falling, 1919 to the present, because World War II did nothing to stop the aggression, which is white supremacy, which continued through communism and Freemason democracy. Despite how propaganda and history reads, life, especially a chronology of business and sports, tells us a completely different story. And we have progressed, but not as much if we did not conspire against our citizens and other nations, which makes the ongoing perpetual justice of heaven a Holy Spirit institution in our lives. Section 1.3.3, letter I. What is the judgment of God? The theme, responsibility for the judgment of God. In the judgment of God, because powerful and important people who are supposedly the best people in the world, are judged, someone has to take responsibility for their judgments, for police, government, and ecclesiastical records. That would be the world crown, which is blessed and commissioned by the Holy Spirit to take responsibility for the judgment of God and for helping to administer the world in its wake. The judgment of God is higher justice, a different form of reasoning, necessary because an emergency situation has arisen and a bad status quo has become too powerful, and humans are ill-equipped to bring it to justice, if not with the help of God's Holy Spirit, who blesses the judgment of God to such ends. Section 1.3.3, letter J. What is the judgment of God? Question: is the judgment of God the end of the world? No, the judgment of God is not the end of the world. Life continues. In the judgment of God, you still have to work or look for work. In the judgment of God, you can still go to school and get a degree. You can raise a family in the judgment of God. During the judgment of God, women marry and are given in marriage. The important thing is that now you know a judgment of God has been a steady event which was occulted from you. The best religion did was their second coming of Christ preaching. But it is not the second coming of Christ, because the judgment over the affairs of humans is the steady ministry of the Holy Spirit, so we can continue to progress. And so, the judgment of God is not the end of the world. During the judgment of God, sports are still played. Since the judgment of God was made a public event, hundreds of thousands of championships have been won and lost in professional and amateur sports. More if you count elementary, middle school, and high school and private organizational sports. And so what we can learn from all this is that God does not need to stop the world or ruin our happiness in order to judge what needs to be judged. Only now there is a voice separated from all religion to bring to life the final days of the pre-existing judgment of God and effectively oppose and defeat all the conspiracies aligned against the people of our world, something that communism, socialism, democracy, and religion failed to do. It is not the end of the world, but another new beginning. Blessed is our Holy Spirit, who made our world so large and interesting that we hardly even notice that a judgment of God is taking place. For a beautiful and interesting world, I give thanks and praise.